So this is the finished product. It's covered by a Bondo, and then with the Rust-Oleum leak seal. And this rubberized spray is actually proven to be pretty resilient to a lot of salts and stuff like that. This was from last year, and we had a big rust out spot on this part of the rocker panel of my Expedition. So if you come back here, you can see that this whole area here I cut out. I trimmed up this part here because I had oversprayed a little too much of the rubber spray, but there was no actual rust up here. What I've done is I've used the 3M steel mesh, and it comes in a 2-pack for about 10 bucks, and basically it's self-adhesive. It will stick to the area, but in order for me to Bondo it, I needed something with a little more strength behind it instead of just Bondoing the abyss behind it. So I took a bunch of the spray foam, as you can see, and backfilled the area behind there. The spray foam expanded much more than I anticipated. Alright, so now that the mesh has stuck in place, I put a thick layer of Bondo and let it cure for about an hour or so, and I just finished sanding it down with the 180 grit. So you can see there's some imperfections and still there's some exposure here on the edges, which is fine because you want to put at least 2 to 3 layers of putty when you're sanding. You want to make sure that you're using a reasonable amount of the cream hardener. The reason being is that the darker the red, like this here, the faster it will cure. Too much and it'll harden before you can really get it on. Too little and it'll take forever for it to cure. So if you look, I've got a nice almost like a skin tone. So we've just put the second layer on, and you can see that there's a little bit of inconsistency in the color. This is slightly darker this time because I don't want to be out here all night. I like using gift cards because gift cards are flexible and you can get a pretty smooth layer on. Alright, so I literally just applied this top layer here, and now you can see just how much darker it is. So I've put more of the hardening agent into it to speed up its cure time. But I don't think I've shown you guys this, but I do a figure 8. So I normally mix the putty like this, ensuring that I'm evenly distributing the hardener and the Bondo as well. And in the process of it, I get a little bit on the trowel as well. So, all right, so we've since sanded that second layer off. You can see how it looks like a blotchy skin tone again. I actually moved indoors because I was sick of waiting for the weather to clear up. I like to do all my body work outside because of the dust and stuff that comes off of it, the fumes from the spray and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I need to get this sealed up because I've been driving around with it in town, I should say, and it looks like absolute shit. So if this paint even still works. We're gonna see. Oh yeah, it's not so bad. This is a sandable primer now. So obviously I don't want to be sanding, but I do want to seal this. Sorry, shit, camera work there. Sorry guys. I don't want the Bondo to be exposed to the elements. The paint will seal it anyway, but it's still one of those things where you just want to do a good job so that you don't have to come back to it again in 6 months. This particular area here in the fall of last year before the winter was completely finished like this. So it had the rock coating on it, which is basically what you would line your truck bed with. And then I sealed it with the rubber paint. So it's a little bit stronger for scratches of rocks and stuff like that, but it's also rubberized as well to repel a lot of the salt and crap to keep it from eroding the body. But the problem is that this area here was already run through. All right, so here we are with the Rust-Oleum multi-color textured spray can. Note that most of Rust-Oleum products claim to stop rust. If you do it before rust starts, then it's feasible. But after the rust has started, then you're pretty much shit out of luck until you start down the route of going with a product that has a it's not an alkaline property to it, but basically it ionizes, I think, the metal, so, or deatomizes or something like that. So basically there's sprays out there that you can spray onto rust, and they've scienced the hell out of it, witchcraft, whatever, but you spray it onto the rust and it will actually stop it dead in its tracks. But it does not work on bare metal. You have to spray it onto rust because there's a chemical component to it that basically reverts the rust back to a neutral state. Don't ask me the science behind it all, but those products exist. They're expensive, so that's why I'm not using them. This is all budget friendly. So what we're going to be doing, this rock coating, although it claims multicolor, it's pretty much a clear with a grit. So it will go on whatever color that you're spraying over. So what I've done is I've patched up an area here on the bumper, and you can see that the texture matches, but right in this area here, that was white. So the bumper was white preceding this. So you can spray multiple layers of it, and you can see that it builds up. So it's a little bit thicker than a regular spray paint, and in doing so you get a texture like this. So right now, so one thing to note is that if you are spraying it and you go a little heavy on it, like I just did, you get quite a bit of runoff. So That's after I swept it up off the floor with the rag. But basically, although it goes on thicker than a paint, it also doesn't dry as fast as the paint. So you can see it's starting to darken there, much like the back of the bumper here. So you can see it's kind of a grayer tinge to it, but that white isn't really coming through anymore. So that's basically what's happening here, is that brown isn't coming through. I mean, it is there, but I tried to get a little bit more paint on there, but that's what caused the dripping. Okay, so I forgot to fill you guys in on the finished product. So although it looks like this area here is all shitty, it's actually just because I cut this trim for the wheel well off. But normally what I do is I use the matte spray paint on top of the rock coating. But because this area was so prone to rust, and because I had to cut the whole section out, I did the Rust-Oleum rubber spray. And it's got a little bit of a texture to it now as opposed to the rock coating. So inevitably, what I may end up doing is throwing some more rock coating on there and putting a top coat of the matte black so that it looks the same. Up close you can't, I mean, I've been driving on it for a couple of days because I forgot, but up front you can't really tell that that was ever cut out of it, right? The only thing I really cared about was making sure that it didn't look like absolute garbage, because I'm driving around on base with it with a friggin' gaping hole on the side. So anyway, that's it. That's the repaired rocker panel. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.